Every NFL team has the same goal entering every season, but not every team is on the same timeline. Teams that just picked in the top 2 or 3 of the NFL draft know, or at least have a good idea, that they are probably not going to win a Super Bowl this year. But not every team is on that timeline, and a lot of the NFL thinks they are going all the way, and that in February of 2024, they will in fact be playing for a Super Bowl title. And as we know, only 2 teams will actually get to play for the Lombardi Trophy. But with most of the NFL offseason wrapped up, there's a few teams I have concerns about regarding their future, and when thinking about a timeline, I ask these teams, when are we going to win a Super Bowl? Because the goal isn't to win 8 or 9 or 10 games, and that's going to be a theme in today's video. And there is a lot to dive into for each of the 3 teams we will discuss, and without further ado, let's begin. And the first team we are going to discuss in today's video is the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are admittedly a team I've been critical of for, several years now, and I do not understand their long-term plan. They released Derek Carr this offseason, which I get with how the whole situation ended, but what happened to them in 2022 is what I fear will happen to them again in 2023. Which is win enough games to miss out on any of the premier quarterbacks next year and be stuck drafting in the 7 to 10 area and go best player available. And if in the scenario they give up a future first round pick to go get their guy, well, believe it or not, we're almost to the point where guys are aging out and this window will be closed before you know it. And I would be very surprised if they win double-digit games this year, and if they do, I will gladly admit I'm wrong. But Josh Jacobs had a career year in 2022, and good for him. He led the league in rushing and had over 2,000 total yards as a back, but I ask this question to Raider Nation while looking around at countless running backs that have had good years and fallen off over the past few years, like Ezekiel Elliott, Leonard Fournette, Joe Mixon, and Melvin Gordon, among many others, and ask, how long do we expect Josh Jacobs to keep this up? It'd be one thing if he was a rookie, but we're talking about a player entering year 5 and a player who just touched the ball 393 times in one season. So if the Raiders miss the playoffs like they are expected to this year, how soon is it until we are having the Josh Jacobs replacement conversation? 30 years of age for a running back used to be the magical number, but it's more like 26 or 27 now, and Josh is already 25. Davante Adams is worth noting because he will turn 31 towards the end of the 2023 season, although I worry much less with him than I do Jacobs because he is such a technician of a route runner and can avoid a lot more contact than Jacobs can, so I think he can play 3 or 4 more years. I do think it is worth noting a decline will probably happen, and the question for Davante is when. And to be clear, again, that might not be a 2023 conversation specifically, but my biggest gripe with the Raiders offseason is cutting Derek Carr to proceed to bring in Jimmy Garoppolo. If you cut Derek Carr and wanted to trade up and get Anthony Richardson, then I'd be fine with it because they would be actively trying to get their quarterback of the future. I don't think even Raiders fans believe Jimmy is going to be the quarterback for them for anything more than a year, and I don't understand why this franchise essentially punted on 2023 and basically said, Jimmy, please lead us against Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and beat these guys. My main gripe is with how they handled the quarterback position while everyone ages, and their fans are supposed to basically say, okay, let's see what you guys have next year. By the way, I love the Tyree Wilson and Michael Mayer picks, and praise Dave Ziegler for those selections, and hopefully he gets them a quarterback of the future next year, but with the Raiders over the past few years, it feels like that's been the message. Always next year, and at what point is enough enough? And next up, ironically after discussing the Raiders, is the New Orleans Saints. And I know before we dive into the Saints, I'm going to be hearing it from their fans about how General Manager Mickey Loomis has a long-term plan and how we should trust him and that it'll be alright in the long run. But will it? Sure, you got Derek Carr this offseason, and sure, you brought in Jamal Williams, who just had a career year with the Lions, and drafted Kendre Miller from TCU. And to be clear, I like those moves, and I think that is very much improving the roster and preparing for what could be with the Alvin Kamara situation. But, and I would ask Saints fans this, Does bringing in those guys make you a legitimate contender? I don't think so, and I understand Rome wasn't built in a day, and it takes time, but in some ways, this franchise reminds me of the Colts and how they've handled the post-Andrew Luck retirement. Obviously, with the Saints, it's the post-Drew Brees retirement. Indy brought in Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, and Matt Ryan, and tried to make it work with those guys, and ultimately it did not. And I will say, I think the Saints will win the NFC South in 2023, but is winning the NFC South what you want to accomplish every single season? Is that the goal heading into August? Because thinking out loud for a second when discussing what the Saints can do in 2023, I think they will win the division, host a playoff game, and for their sake, hopefully win a playoff game, and then go lose in San Francisco or Philadelphia and take your choosing of the two. And to be fair to New Orleans, I think that's the maximum for a lot of teams, and I would even include my Minnesota Vikings within that umbrella too. But you're in a division that, guys, we can call it is what it is. Bad. Yes, the Falcons and Panthers look to be very much on the rise, but the Bucs won the division last year with an 8-9 record, and it wouldn't surprise me if 8-9 would win the NFC South this year too. I think New Orleans will finish around the 9-8 or 10-7 area, but do you think Derek Carr is going to, at some point over the next few years, be on a parade float going down the streets of New Orleans, hoisting the Lombardi Trophy? Granted, that question more often than not favors the no, I don't think they're going to win a championship side because of how hard it is to win one championship in professional sports, let alone multiple, but the point stands. And the Saints were in a very tough situation, but I would like to point out this was because of the awful trade Mickey Loomis made during the 2022 NFL Draft. Giving the Eagles their 2023 first round pick and a 2024 second round pick was a bad trade to begin with, when you knew heading into the season your starting quarterback was Jameis Winston, who is pretty much the definition of a wild card. And by the way, for clarity, the trade between the Saints and Eagles was actually made before the draft. But having that top 10 pick, which Philly traded up to 9 to go get Jalen Carter, kind of shows where each of these franchises are at the moment. Howie Roseman had no problem playing the long game, and at least on paper, it worked out. Chris Olave is a great receiver, and I like him a lot, and I think he will be a perennial 1,000-yard receiver, but he cannot carry a receiver room by himself. I think there are far too many holes on this roster to think this team can legitimately compete for a Super Bowl this upcoming year, yet they proceeded to go all in with, to me, what is equivalent to a pair of twos at the poker table. And again, I think they will win the NFC South, but is that what we want to do for the next few years? They were 2-6 against playoff teams in 2022, and one of those wins came against the Gardner Minshew-led Eagles. And the other came against the Seahawks, which, by the way, I credit the hell out of the Saints for running the ball down their throats that game and establishing dominance against them. But I question what the Saints' long-term plan is at this point in time. And next up is the New England Patriots, and there's a lot to dive into here, and it's not just one thing, and it's not going to be a couple of minutes slander on Mac Jones either. This part of the video for the Patriots is going to be more of a question of how do we get back to seriously competing rather than be where we are. And that's my biggest thing with the Patriots, is over the past 3 years now, I don't think they're taking steps in order to win a Super Bowl. And the NFL, as we know, waits for nobody, and the Patriots are a perfect example of this. The Bills, Dolphins, and now Jets have all been very proactive and have done everything they can in order to win a Super Bowl. The Bills were entering a very pivotal year of Josh Allen's development and traded for star receiver Stephon Diggs, and the rest you could say is history pertaining to the Diggs trade. Since being traded to Buffalo, Stephon has been named to 3 Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pros, and has not had less than 100 catches or 1,200 yards in a single season. The Dolphins knew Tua needed help as he was entering his 3rd season, and they got him a weapon in Tyreek Hill, who in his lone season with the Dolphins so far, well, all he did was go for 119 receptions for over 1,700 yards and 7 touchdowns. And even the Jets got in on the action as they knew Zach Wilson needed a weapon, so they got him Garrett Wilson, who of course went on to win the 2022 Rookie of the Year. And the Jets made another big move to try and win a Super Bowl, as they of course traded for four-time league MVP Aaron Rodgers. And at this point, all signs are pointing for the Patriots to finish last in the AFC East in 2023. And when the division rival teams have been making these moves, what have the Patriots done to try and keep up? And that's a big reason why they made today's video, and a big reason why I have so much concern with them for not only 2023, but for the ensuing years as well. And if you take a look at the Patriots depth chart at the moment and look who Mac Jones is throwing to, is Juju Smith-Schuster, Devontae Parker, and Tyquan Thornton supposed to scare other teams? And even if you want to take Tyquan out and replace him with Kendrick Bourne or 6th round pick Kayshon Boutte for that matter, do these receivers scare anybody? No, and Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki don't either. None of these guys are bad players, of course, but are you going into Arrowhead Stadium or Paycor Stadium or Highmark Stadium in the wildcard round of the playoffs and beating the Chiefs, Bengals, or Bills with your season on the line? I don't see any way that happens, and I very much think the Patriots have become an average football team and truly are stuck in the worst spot a professional team can be, and that's the middle of the pack. The Bills are 3-time defending division champions now, and dating back to 2020, the Patriots are 1-6 against Buffalo with 5 double-digit losses to them. And you may be wondering how they could have played 7 times in 3 years, because it should be 6 times as each team plays their division opponent twice per season, but these teams met in Buffalo in the playoffs in 2021, and Buffalo beat them by, you guessed it, 30 points. And in a lot of ways, this reminds me of the Patriots and Bills from the 2000s, when the Bills were looking up and saying, oh shit, how do we stop Tom Brady for the next decade? Except now it's, how do we stop Josh Allen for the next decade? And to be clear, no, I don't think the Bills are going to win 6 Super Bowls, but the concept of stopping a division quarterback for the next decade remains. And the only Patriots win against Buffalo was the insane wind game in December of 2021 as they threw the ball 3 times. I think in a lot of ways they're waiting for the end of the Belichick era because they can't fire him because of everything he's accomplished. And maybe the wording should be they won't fire him rather than can't, but the whole division has passed them. And by the way, I love their defense as they have players like Matt Judon and Josh Uche, who I believe is one of the most underrated players in all of football. But if you can't score in the AFC, or you can't compete with the top dogs in the conference, which is a problem a lot of the teams have, by the way, your season is almost over before it starts. And if I had to guess what the Patriots are going to do in 2023, I think they'll finish with anywhere from 7 to 9 wins, miss the playoffs because I don't think they're a top 7 team in the conference, and I think we will have this same conversation 1 year from now. The Washington Commanders certainly could have made today's video, as going all in with Sam Howell is a very bold choice, and I am very interested to see how that plays out in what is quietly a tough division to play in, as the NFC East had 3 playoff teams in 2022. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as only about 28% of people watching are subscribed to the channel, and it would very much help the channel's growth. So please subscribe if you are enjoying, and until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.